I go to NA, Narcotics Anonymous, because I'm a drug addict. I love my pot, I love my cocaine, I love getting high. I can't do that anymore. I don't want to do it anymore because I know what it causes. I'm just going back to jail. My name is Perry Mitchell. I come from Haida Gwaii in the Queen Charlotte Islands, where I was raised on the reserve in Old Masset. My family still lives on the reserve in Old Masset. I grew up living on the reserve since I was about yay high. I was the first white person ever to live on our reserve, and it was like, it was an experience, because it was like, there's the white kid, let's get him, and I was running. I used to be very good at sports, you know, and it was like the chase was on. But I grew up there and eventually got adopted into the Haida Nation. My family still lives on the reserve. I'm here to talk to you about the justice system and what happens when you go through the justice system, because you could say I've been there, done that. I've been through the residential schools in Alert Bay, where they sent us up to go to school, from there to the group homes, from the group homes to the foster homes to juvenile detention to provincial jails, and then finally the federal penitentiaries. I have spent 14 years of my life locked up, and I know what happens when you go to jail. And if you go to jail today, I'm here to tell you, I don't see anybody in this room that's going to live, because you're going to die. There is so much crime, and the atrocities that happen in jail are so nasty. It's not because you can go to jail, and it's not because of what you did to somebody or who you are. Maybe it's because of what you got. If you go to jail and you've got a color TV that these junkies think they can get a paper of heroin from the heroin dealer in jail, they're going to come into your cell, and what are you going to do? You're going to have 2-3 guys standing there with a knife, and they're going to take what you got. The drugs in jail are everywhere. There's so many drugs in jail. They actually give you cleaning kits for your syringes. The HIV rate in jail is phenomenal. I mean, there is so much AIDS in jail because of everybody sharing needles and everything. It's just crazy.
And jail doesn't teach you anything except how to be better criminals. All jail teaches you do is that you don't have to take responsibility for anything. They tell you when to get up, they tell you when to go to bed, they tell you when to go to the bathroom, they tell you what to eat and when to eat it. And when your sentence is over, they kick you out the front door, and you're back outside with no more skills and no more ability to stay out of trouble than you had when you went in.
Jail is not a place to grow up in. If you are, a young teenager, you're getting into trouble with the law and you start to come to jail, and you are not able to stop that lifestyle, we will raise you over 4, 5, 6 years. And there are several kids that really they'll come in and out of jail frequently, and it is no place to grow up. You will not experience the freedom to do all the things that teenagers should be doing. Your career in youth custody, you will be terrified of having to go back into society where you have freedom. And you are now responsible for the choices that you have to make because we've been making them for you. And it is not something that you want to go through. Each time you come back to jail, in my opinion, increases the likelihood that you will come back again.
You're going to jail. You get caught, you're in trouble. You go to jail, you die. You think I'm kidding? This jail here, they're closing so many jails in BC, provincial jails. They closed Terrace, BC, they closed Hutta Lake. All of those inmates from those other jails have moved up to this jail here. This jail here is like a pressure cooker. They are putting 3 people in a cell that is built for 1. If you have to go to the toilet at 3 o'clock in the morning, guess what? You're going to end up stepping on somebody, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to get up swinging, and somebody's getting hurt. Jail is not a nice place to be these days, and the laws are changing so fast that if you don't get with the program, you're in trouble. If you horse around with guns, you use a gun in a crime today, mandatory, automatic, 4 years in jail. And that's just for the gun. Now they're going to sentence you for doing the crime. They're going to add on a couple more years after that. There is mandatory sentences being handed down, and the judges, it doesn't matter if it's your first time going to court. It's a mandatory sentence, and the judge can't help you. He is obligated to give you that sentence. So you're going to jail, and you're going for a long time.
The Prince George Youth Custody Center is you could describe it a maximum security jail for young offenders. And when we don't determine, the punishment for a crime, that's the judge makes that decision. And when you're sent to jail, what it really means is your loss of freedom. And you may think of loss of freedom as being just confined in a particular location, but it's a lot more than that. From the time that you enter the building to the time that you leave, virtually everything that you would take for granted is now regulated.
This is our segregation cell. And kids who are non-compliant or violent or unstable can end up in here for up to 3 days. The lights stay on 24 hours a day, and anybody who's in here gets checked by us every 15 minutes.
Most cases where we see young people coming before the courts, it's because they've gotten involved in alcohol and drug use.
Never in my life have I gone to jail. In 14 years of going to jail, I have never gone to jail for something I did sober. It's always been get drunk first, then I get high, then I get a gun, I go to make money, then I go to jail.
In my practice as a lawyer, over 20 years, I kept track of the number of cases that I defended and prosecuted that were related to substance abuse, and it was over 90%.
There are some stories, a lot of damages I've seen done to the youth where kids that get involved with drugs and alcohol, those are one of the things that'll bring a person down and prevent them from following their goals and their choices, and to make the wrong choices in life once you get involved with the drug and the alcohol culture.
I became an alcohol on the reserve because my stepfather used to bootleg Barn White wine down on our reserve, and I'd steal half a gallon, go down the beach with my friends. So I became an alcoholic at a very young age. Today I got to go to these programs. I go to AA because I'm an alcoholic and I love to drink. I had a code: get drunk, get high, get a gun, go to jail. That was my system. First I'd get drunk, then I want to get high. Once I get high, I want to get a gun because that's how I make money. Once I've got a gun, I'm going to make money, and then I'm going to jail.
Some young people start with huffing gas, some with alcohol taken from adults in their community who either allow them at too young an age to start drinking, or they steal it because they see adults doing this. Young people think it's all right. When you become addicted to alcohol or drugs, it makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do. It makes you make choices that end you up in jail. Sometimes judges hear things that cause them to lose sleep. A few years ago, there was a case in a remote reserve in northern BC along the Alaska Highway where a young man was accused of raping his own sister. The evidence showed that he was so drunk that he did not remember what he had done. The evidence also showed that his sister was so drunk that she couldn't remember most of what happened. The end result of that incident was that the family was shattered. The other brothers and sisters were shamed. The mother and father lost face in the community. I could not believe that the conditions were as bad as they were described to me in a courtroom. So I went to that reserve. Some of the evidence involved a claim that on that small reserve, every door had been kicked in. There was no way to lock yourself in and be safe and secure in your own home. So I went there, and that was the case. Life on that reserve was 80% of the reserve dependent or addicted to some sort of substance, mainly alcohol, gas, and other harder drugs when they could get them. That it wasn't unusual to be woken up at 4 a.m. with somebody going through your closet in your bedroom looking for alcohol. In this community, fetal alcohol syndrome and fetal alcohol effect are rampant. Fetal alcohol syndrome, of course, produces in young children an inability to understand the consequences of their actions. Behavior that is completely unacceptable, yet they don't know they're being bad. When this is passed on from generation to generation, the results are horrifying. So I left that reserve feeling very sad and very depressed. Fortunately, Balancing that, there are many times when I have First Nations groups come into my court. Yesterday was a good example. I had a number of young people and an elders advisory group in the court from the Gitxsan-Wet'suwet'en area around Smithers, Hazelton, Morristown, telling me what they're doing to make sure this doesn't happen in their communities. Because if we lose our communities, we lose our families. And if we lose our families, we're alone. And there's nothing that's worse for a young person to be alone in a jail cell charged with a serious criminal offense.
Today I'm changing my life. I work in a 24-hour shelter where I help people today. I provide a safe environment for them to come and sleep if they don't have a place to stay at night. You know, instead of hurting people, I help people today. I really stress education wherever I go. You know, it's very important because I've lived on the reserves. I know jobs are bar none. There's nothing to do on the reserves.
To young people who think they don't need an education, the jails are full of people without high school diplomas. They can't get work, so they steal. They can't get work, so they get depressed, and they drink, and they fight. And they get a record, and that record prevents them from getting jobs. There are opportunities in a lot of places.
I always wanted to become a policeman, but I lacked a little bit of the confidence until a Native Special Constable, friend of my mom and dad's, Andy Kwok was his name. He was a police officer in the Hazelton area along with him, and he talked to me and he gave me the confidence. He said that, you know, Wade, if I can join the RCMP and do the job, then you know, you can do it too if you really want to do it.
I went back to school because, for one, I never had a job in my life. What am I going to do with myself? How am I going to put a roof over my head? I didn't know what to do. I had a grade 5 education because that's as far as I didn't even make it to grade 5. I just, you know, up on our reserve, we went to the school on the reserve and that was it, and I was off and running. I went back to do some upgrading. Because of the long term I've spent in jail, that's where I got my education. I used to do a lot of reading in my cell when we were in lockdowns. Education is bar none the most important thing I've ever found out.
One of the people that I went to law school with is a man by the name of Ed John. And he is a chief now. And he is an example of a First Nations person who refused. He refused to let himself be dragged down. And he completed his law degree and he's gone on to bigger and better things.
Education, bar none, is so important for First Nations people because if you want a job for the rest of your life, get involved, get your education. Once you've got an education and you qualify for those jobs, there's no stopping you because there's going to be lots of jobs available.
It's open to all of you to become a lawyer or a judge or any one of the personnel that work in the court system. Sheriffs, probation officers, court clerks. There are many people who are here to administer this system, a system which tries to help when it can, but ultimately will punish people who break the law. When children see their father hit their mother, they learn that it's all right to hit one another. When children see their father and mother drinking alcohol and behaving in a manner that's violent towards one another, they think that's the way life is. We must do everything we can to stop that from happening through education, through training, and through loving our children.